A very good morning, students. Welcome to the class. Students, in today's session, we are going to talk about editorials. Those editorials that are important for our examination point of view. Now, these editorials have been taken from different papers for your help. So let's quickly start the editorial section. This editorial appeared in the newspaper about do escape from old ideas in Economic Times on 8th July 2021. So Economic Times obviously means the topic will be GS3. Keywords are 1991 economic reforms, license permit Raj, foreign trade, protectionism, and self-reliance. Now let's start. See the scenario prior to 1990s. For us, it took a year to get a telephone and an LPG connection. Sometimes you have to wait for 6 months, 9 months to get telephone as well as LPG connection. India in those days had the luxury of three brands of soap, only three brands of soap, only two brands of shampoos. That's all. Then people used to smuggle cameras, tape recorders, TVs. Mumbai was very famous for these kind of import smuggling. Vespa scooter was the biggest thing that anyone could have that time because everything was under the control of government. Licenses were not given, so we had a very few options. Till 1990, government controlled every aspect of life. There was a license permit Raj. Renowned scholar argued that a law cannot really be classified as law unless it imbibes within itself the idea of justice and equality. That time, what was the problem was there was not a just law. There were unjust laws. License was compulsory. Officer used to take bribe. So that's why their common name came as license permit Raj. Second point, foreign trade and foreign investments are exploitative. Now, when you look at the foreign trade and foreign investments, national interest is the best for self-reliance because any foreign trade or foreign investments are exploitative. They take the country's resources back, they charge you high amount of money, your rupee value will go down. So there was these kind of problems. Producing everything we need ourselves with domestic investment, right? And by deploying a homegrown technology was the idea that time that foreign goods are bad, foreign investments are bad. Since we had experience from Britishers, so we thought everything will be done by us. Third thing, investment in the public sector. The belief was that the private sector is always driven by profit motive. That's why it will undermine the public interest and everything has to be done by the public sector. But then what happened? Then an issue happened. Foreign exchange crisis of the 1990. India did not had money dollar to buy petrol. Now we were worried. We don't have dollars. We don't have foreign currency. How will we buy the petrol now? And without petrol, how will the cars run? The army run? The tanks run? So that triggered the 1991 reforms. And what were the reasons for this crisis? Reason number one, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. He invaded Kuwait, price of the oil spiked, and India became worried. NRI pulled out their investment. They are like, war is going on. The country may not progress. Let's pull out the investments. Oil prices are going up. The country does not have money to buy oil. Let's take out their investment. Remittances from the Gulf countries dried up. There was war going on. So these people who were living there cannot send the money back to the country. Due to the above reason, forex reserve plummeted to rock bottom. The government was borrowing from Japan in the morning and repaying IMF in the afternoon just to avoid default. Parallelly, India was negotiating bridge loan with the balance of payment. Balance of payment is what? How much ever India owed to the world minus how much was the world owed to India. And we didn't have money. We were negotiating what to do. And the ultimate outcome came. And the ultimate outcome was we need to finish this bureaucratic structure. All product became high cost, low quality, and economy turned into backwardness. So, to overcome this problem, we went for reforms of 1991. We wanted to remove bureaucracy, bring quality products in India, and provide people with better options. The difficulty lies not in so much in developing new idea as in escaping from old one. This was Keynes. So that's why it's called Keynesian economic also. Three things the government should focus on. Point number one, avoid protectionism. What is protectionism? Protesting your own domestic economy from foreign economy by giving them certain subsidy or tax conventions or tax, basically some kind of tax concession is called protectionism. That should be completely avoided. We should not do that. Competition is good for the economy. If your domestic products can compete with the outside world, then the quality of the product will increase, the variety of the product will increase, and eventually the consumer are to be benefited. The long-term cost of locking ourselves is also not good. How much you will survive without competing with the world? You are not living in 1930s now. There's a globalization that is going to happen, which will anyways happen and which has happened. How can you protect by not fighting with them? So this is not good for our growth measures. So that's why want to avoid protectionism. Then free from fear of unknown. Resistance to reform comes from fear of unknown. We have not taken any reforms, but we fear that reforms may affect us. That's why fear of unknown. There were apprehensions few years ago of the Kirana shop across the country. Supermarkets will kill them, but you see Kirana shops are becoming more strong. Supermarket is also becoming eventually helping the customer. Affirmative actions are inevitable. Reforms tend to sharpen inequalities. That's why we have to go for affirmative action. That means we have to take a step ahead that benefits the society. So pushing India's through next generation of reforms demand political dexterity and visionary statesmanship. You got the idea? It's very, very important. You have to take affirmative action and reforms because that is the only way you will be able to make your country competent enough to fight with the world, both in terms of products, services, and manufacturing. This will help the entire society at the large and the country at the beginning. Article number 2. It appeared in Live Mint. This talks about towards East Asia, that is IR, and that to economic type of IR. So the topic will go to GS3 economic development. Let's look at it. Budget speech of Manmohan Singh on July 1991 when India were going for reforms. He said that several balance of payment crises that had taken India close to international default earlier that year was not a temporary funding crunch. It's a deeper problem. And the deeper problem because of the protectionism we had that time. That included macroeconomic imbalances. Our policies are not in favor of export and import and not in favor of private businesses. Low productivity of public sector investments. That means our public sector companies of that time, they have very low productivity. They are not generating enough revenue for the country. They are not producing enough quality good for the country. Indiscriminate protection that had weakened the incentive of export. The kind of protection that India gave that time to the export oriented countries made them weak. They could not compete with the world because they have got so much protection that they were not trying to do better for the products. Weak financial system. Banks were controlled by politicians. Politicians were controlled by the bank, which created the problem of capital in the country. Lack of domestic competition. Three soaps, one car, two brands of chocolate is not good. We require competition. Competition is good. Competition brings prices down. Competition brings quality. And since we are providing too much of protectionism, people are not investing in technological improvement, which eventually leading to the problem of quality. What were the results of economic reforms of 1991? India had a several balance of payment crisis almost every once in a decade. We happen in 56, 66, 81, and 90. And that's the reason prior to 1991, economic growth had been held back by four major structural constraints: domestic savings, foreign exchange, food, and aggregate demand. Now, all this have been overcome in last 3 decades. If you look at domestic savings, the domestic savings rate to fund domestic investment have very much improved because investment is equal to saving. Investment is directly proportional to saving. If the investment increases, savings will increase. If the savings will increase, investments will increase. However, after 2008, it has come down quite a lot, but still we have better than what we had in 1980. Foreign exchange. Today, foreign exchange is no longer a worry. The occasional balance of surplus happens. RBI had some time extra. Why? We are doing good in electronics, agriculture, service exports, right? So we are getting better observed by the international market. Food. We don't have shortage of food now because of green revolution. We have buffer stock. We are able to help our population, which has also helped us a lot. There is a demand in the market. Aggregate demand is increasing. Why? Reforms have happened. Demand is there. Population is growing, right? So now there is a enough demand market as compared to the previous years. Rising incomes have also helped us a lot. But what are the constraints? What are the constraints? What are the constraints? Constraint number one: health and education crisis during the pandemic. So much we developed, but we could not develop health and education crisis. India still does not have adequate state capacity and regulatory capacity for around $1 trillion economy. A lot of economy is out of the regulation. Ecological stress as well as climate change will create new problem. It's just not about development now. It is also about sustainable development. And these are our next kind of constraint. When you look at what finance minister said in 1992 was, he said our long-term objective is to evolve a pattern of production which is labor intensive, generates large amount of employment opportunities, both in productive as well as high income jobs. And we still have to do that today. We also want to remove the disparity between the rural India and the urban India. That is also very, very important. But what happened in reality? In reality, what happened? The disparity became more severe. We could not generate enough jobs in formal enterprises. Informal economic growth very fast. Political pressure, too much of subsidies, waivers created a lot of instability in the market. Right? Rather than moving towards East Asian countries, how they develop, we went toward Latin American countries. So the problem that they are facing, we are also facing the same problem today. Topic number 3, use demographic dividend to come up out of middle income track. Paper 1, Indian society topic. Article appeared in Live Mint. Keywords are demographic dividend, middle income trap, World Bank, labor laws, manufacturing sector. Now, let's try to understand that. India had 3 decade window of demographic dividend. 3 decade, that is 30 years. That means When you have highest population in the age group of 15 to 45, you call that as demographic dividend. India has around 3 decades windows of opportunity to leverage its human resource and realize its growth potential. This is the time which India should achieve high income status, because these young population is going to become old tomorrow and will create new problems for India. Majority of the countries have failed to make the leap from middle income to high income group. This is what you know as middle income trap. You are having demographic dividend, but since you are not able to create jobs for them, economic opportunity for them, you are not going to reap their benefits, and tomorrow they are going to become a burden on your country. What do you understand by middle income trap? This trap was first conceived by World Bank Economics, who found out that out of the 101 developing countries that could be classified as middle income in 1960, only 13 managed to become rich. That means they got stuck in middle income trap. What we should do now? India should use this demographic dividend, sir. We should use it to provide them jobs, pension scheme, insurance, health, education, job opportunities, so that tomorrow they do not become burden on the state. If we don't provide them job, they become burden today, they become burden tomorrow. What needs to be done? Improvement in productivity. Our labor skills have to improve. We have to improve productivity in agriculture. Our agriculture has very low productivity today. Manufacturing has low productivity. People are not producing how much they can produce. Technology is still backward. We need to improve the technology so that we transit ourselves from middle income to high income. Our output per worker is on decline, that needs to be improved. From 7.9 in 2010, we have already gone to 3.5 in 2019. So we need to improve our output per worker. Look at the manufacturing sector, only 14%. Without manufacturing sector, how can you give employment? How can you give job? If you don't give job, if you don't give employment, then how can you basically provide them with the income resources? A lot of population is still stuck in agriculture, which is also not good. We need to do something to bring out of a population from agriculture, and agriculture need to be made profitable. Look at our labor laws. Our labor laws are very archaic. People do not want to start a company. Why? Because of the strict labor laws. Neither they are helping labor, neither they are helping the company. Too much of regulation, corruption, and create new problem for us. Now these labor, they try to keep their worker inside the factory below 20 and 10 without power, so that they do not come under Factories Act. That is another problem. Their purpose is not growing, because if they grow, then they come on labor laws and new problems will happen. These labor laws that came prior to 4 labor codes, obviously we have new labor codes now, created incentives for the firm to remain small. If they remain strong, no labor laws will be effective for them, so they did not want it to grow. But as new labor laws are coming, what about the new labor codes? The new labor codes, one implemented, would increase the threshold relating to layoff and retrenchment up to 300 workers. But individual and collective dismissal by the company about this threshold would still require prior permission from the government. About 300, definitely. As in case in point, China, Vietnam, Bangladesh do not require approval of administrative or judicial body. They are left up to the company to decide whether they want to hire someone or whether they want to fire someone. That's why we need to more reforms. Third, technological intensive manufacturing. We need to focus on improving within the sector productivity. Research and development. We literally have no research and development. That's the reason we are not able to create better products. That's the reason we don't have an iPhone. We require better investment in R&D, better management practices, and adoption of new technology. Right? We need to bring higher value products, tech incentive activities, so that we improve in our productivity. Exports. What about our exports? If our exports are taken as proxy for the manufacturing and competitiveness, the present status of manufacturing in India is dismissal picture. As per World Bank data, high-tech export account for only 10% of India's export. That means our exports are not bought by the world. We are not into high-tech export. If you look at the R&D spending, 31 in China, 13 in Brazil, 14 in Vietnam, 24 in Thailand. R&D spending India is 0.64 to 0.86. That's all, that's all, that's all. So productivity is the mantra. We need to do appropriate intervention to improve productivity. We must do as long as our demographic dividend window is active. Once we lose that 15 to 45 age group people, then it would become us very, very difficult for us to basically develop the country. Got the idea? Great. Finally, the last topic. Ethanol became the savior of the sugarcane sector. GS3 article appeared in Business Line. Keyword sugarcane, ethanol, blended petrol, ethanol, B heavy molasses, Rangarajan committee. What is the good news for sugarcane industry? India's ethanol program, blending ethanol with petrol for use as an auto fuel. The sugarcane sector is hoping to come out of the problems which it was facing. A sugar byproduct will be used to blend with petrol, and that will be used as an energy resource, will benefit the sugar sector. The government allowed sugar mill to sell whatever quantity they wanted at the time and the price their choice. Supply of levy sugar at the discounted price to the government for distribution was also ended. Now they can sell it to anyone at any price. Government fixes sugarcane prices. The contentious issue of the government fixing the sugarcane prices continues even today. It is considered as one of the main reasons for the problem of sugarcane industry. No supply and demand mismatch. Here the problem is the government is fixing the prices, which is creating the more problem. Rangarajan suggested that same pricing share mechanism by the millers and the farmer based on sugar recovery, which has never been implemented. Then, CO 238 changed the face of the sugarcane cultivation in Uttar Pradesh. A new variety of sugarcane called CO 238 was developed for use in Uttar Pradesh. It delivered significantly higher yield of 30 tons per acre against 22 tons from earlier varieties. The recovery rate increased to 11% as against 9%, is now on par with Maharashtra. The share of Uttar Pradesh in sugar output has also risen to 40 from 25 just because of one variety of CO 238. What sugar surplus controls were reintroduced? The government reintroduced mostly the sale quota, fixed minimum selling price for sugar to ensure that the cash-strapped sugar mills do not flood market with sugar. This is to keep the local price stable. If they flood too much price sugar in the market, prices will fall and that will lead to the crash. At the same time, to liquidate the excess of stock of sugar, it started giving export subsidies to India to make India a sugar exportive country. But ethanol is the savior. India's ethanol blending program was announced in 2003, but it never took off because of the multiple reasons like poor pricing, periodic shortage of sugar, competing demand with potable alcohol sector. But the government around 5 years ago began fixing attractive prices for ethanol that oil marketing companies procured for blending. This motivated sugar industry to produce ethanol. Subsequently, ethanol production is allowed from earlier stages of sugar. Originally, ethanol was allowed from just C molasses. Later, it was allowed to convert from B heavy molasses. Why government didn't allow that time was they were converted into local liquor, creating more problem. Subsequently, the government allowed production of ethanol directly from sugarcane juice. Not only that, it also offered higher price for ethanol produced from cane juice and heavy molasses. And you see the result now. These measures not only enhance the ethanol availability, but also help in tackling the sugar surplus. It is incident to note that in 2020-21, 2 million tons of sugar output is expected to be converted into ethanol. As we go forward, the entire sugar surplus of 6 million ton will be converted into ethanol, and ethanol is proving to be a good tool for managing sugar surplus. In 2000 year 21, ethanol blending's target was 5% was met. It is expected to reach around 8%. Now 8% of the petrol will be blended with ethanol, and then 20%. Another innovation. Government came with an innovative scheme, a tripartite agreement between sugar companies, bank and oil manufacturing companies. The banks fund ethanol capacity addition, said to be around 41,000 crore, and the money from the ethanol sale will be used to repay the debt through the separate escrow account. One more reform is just over. Let us follow Rangarajan Committee. The Rangarajan Committee has suggested a formula to fix the cane price, factoring the price of the sugar and other byproducts. In case the cane price arrived by the formula drop below the government consider as a reasonable repayment, government can bridge the gap from dedicated fund created for the purpose. This will help the industry to survive. If the government bites the final bullet, the sector will become globally competitive and financially independent, and cane arrears will be a history in the India. That's all with editorial today. Then you will have another video called short current affairs. So we are covering editorial separately and short current affairs separately. Thank you. Goodbye. Take care.